I told him to do as I said or pack his bags right in front of our friends. The look on his face said it all. I don't think people truly understand how cruel life can be until they've experienced the person they love the most abandoning them. And that's exactly what happened to me. The person who meant the world to me left, and I was forced to confront the harsh reality of life. The ironic part, it was all my fault. They say you don't know what you have until it's gone, and I never realized how true that was until it happened to me. To clarify, this is about Larry and me. Larry was my boyfriend, and we had been together for about a year. You know how people sometimes develop strange habits or traits over time? Well, that's what happened to me. I wish I could say I didn't know where I picked up the particular behavior that strained our relationship, but I know exactly where it came from. Things used to be so sweet between Larry and me. We had the perfect banter. Both of us were naturally funny, which is a rare thing to find in a partner. We spoke bluntly to each other, often in humorous ways that got the message across while making us laugh. But that dynamic began to change when my sister came to stay with us for a few days. My sister was going through a bad breakup, and I didn't want her to be alone. During her stay, she did things I wouldn't normally tolerate, but because she was my sister and in a tough place, I tried to be understanding. Larry and I were both very tidy. It was one of the things that made our relationship work so well. We couldn't stand a messy house or dirty dishes in the sink. But while my sister was with us, it felt like we were living with a dozen 6-year-olds. The house was constantly a mess. And when it wasn't, it was only because we had cleaned it up. I was stressed, but I tried to hold it together. Larry, however, was fed up. He talked to me about it first, saying he couldn't handle my sister's self-loathing, which manifested in her trashing the house. He joked about the dishes piling up like we were in a dirty dish competition. I laughed at the time because he said it in such a funny way, and I admired how quickly he could come up with something like that. I told him to give her time. She was going through a lot. But the truth was, Larry was the one doing most of the cleaning because he got home from work first and couldn't stand the mess. It was only a matter of time before everything exploded. One evening, I came home to loud shouts coming from the house. I rushed in, worried something terrible had happened. My first thought was my sister. I imagined her fragile state might have led her to do something extreme. But when I stormed inside, I found Larry yelling at her while she lay on the couch with a completely indifferent expression. I asked what was going on, and it turned out my sister had left the kitchen faucet on. With the sink clogged by dirty dishes, the water had overflowed, flooding the kitchen. Larry was furious, his anger palpable as he scolded her. Even when I asked him to stop, he kept going, ranting about the damage and the cost of repairs, especially for our downstairs neighbors. None of that mattered to me in the moment. All I wanted was for him to be quiet, but he wouldn't stop. In a fit of rage, I yelled at him with everything I had. I told him to shut up, accused him of whining like a child, and even defended my sister, saying, "You should get off her case." The shock on Larry's face was unmistakable. He asked if I was serious, and I told him I was dead serious. He raised his hands in surrender and walked away to deal with the mess in the kitchen. That moment marked the beginning of a shift in our relationship. I know this because I have a sharp memory and notice every detail around me. But the downside of that is that I can sometimes be delusional, interpreting things in ways that aren't accurate. For example, when I saw Larry's reaction that day, I thought I saw defeat in his eyes. I thought he had submitted to me. But the truth was he was just trying to control his anger. I misinterpreted his restraint as weakness, and that misconception planted the seed for the behavior that ultimately destroyed our relationship. About a week later, my sister left, but things never went back to normal. Larry became quieter, less talkative, and less funny around me. Even after my sister was gone, the tension remained. Things took a turn for the worse during a friend's birthday party. I had gone ahead and Larry was supposed to bring the cake. I guess he was trying to be playful like we used to be and showed up empty-handed. I was talking to a friend when I saw him walk in without the cake, and something inside me snapped. I didn't even excuse myself. I just stormed over to him, my voice loud enough for everyone to hear. I pulled him aside and demanded to know where the cake was. My tone was harsh, brutal, and completely unrestrained. I sounded like a tyrant, and the worst part was I didn't even realize it at the time. I had been holding in a lot of anger, and I didn't realize just how much until that moment. When I confronted him, he looked completely shocked, as if he had genuinely forgotten he was supposed to pick up the cake. I asked him again, my voice rising, and even cursed as I demanded to know where it was. He didn't answer, and his silence only fueled my frustration. My voice, already loud, reached a deafening pitch. That's when he finally admitted it. He had forgotten. Completely forgotten. He stood there, feet firmly planted, his eyes locked onto mine, almost daring me to react. His calm demeanor only infuriated me more. I lost all composure and shouted at him, calling him unreliable and even stupid. His face tightened into a frown, his anger palpable, but I didn't care. I kept pushing, asking if he was too scared to own up to his mistakes. He didn't respond, didn't even blink. His gaze was stern, unwavering, as if he were casting some dark, unspoken spell on me. I matched his stare, unblinking in what felt like a silent, legendary standoff. The tension was shattered by the sudden arrival of two of Larry's friends, bursting in with the cake and shouting, "Surprise!" I was stunned. My face must have been a picture of complete shock. I looked at Larry, but his expression hadn't changed. His eyes remained fixed on me, cold and bitter, as if his anger had rooted itself deep within him. He didn't blink, didn't falter. He was clearly furious, and instead of apologizing, I made a joke out of it. I can't even remember what I said, but I remember how I felt, stupid and embarrassed. I quickly asked the DJ to turn up the music and slipped away into another room, avoiding Larry for the rest of the party. Avoiding him wasn't easy. It felt like he had made it his mission to watch me, his eyes like lighthouses cutting through the darkness, searching for me. I was the thief, desperately trying to evade their beam. It was an uncomfortable game. But what was worse was that I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. Instead, I was consumed by fear. Fear of the inevitable conversation we would have to have. No matter how much I avoided him at the party. I couldn't escape the fact that we were going home together. When the party ended, I walked out to the car and saw Larry waiting. It was one of the most terrifying moments of my life. He stood there like a hitman, silent and focused, as if he had a mission to carry out. I couldn't see his eyes in the dark, but I knew he was watching me. I approached cautiously, counting my steps, half expecting him to have left me there, but he hadn't. He got into the car without a word, not even bothering to check if I had anything to say. I slid into the back seat, too afraid to sit beside him. The ride home was silent, and we never spoke about what happened. I thought he had forgotten, but deep down I knew he hadn't. And instead of apologizing like an adult, I buried it, hoping it would just go away. But it didn't. My behavior only got worse. And the next time it surfaced, it was at a family gathering. We had argued earlier that day because Larry didn't want to go. I had said everything I could to convince him, even accusing him of not loving me or prioritizing me. Larry wasn't a fan of my family, especially my mom, who had a habit of bringing up my exes in front of him, as if to remind him he wasn't good enough. A few months earlier, Larry had finally confronted her about it, and they hadn't spoken since. I knew this, but I didn't care. I just wanted him to come with me. Eventually, he agreed. From the moment we walked into my parents' house, all eyes were on him. It was like a lion stepping into a den of hyenas. Larry stayed quiet, sitting off to the side while I mingled with my family, laughing and joking as if nothing was wrong. When we sat down for dinner, the tension was unbearable. Larry was seated between my sister and me, directly across from my mother. The sharp glances exchanged across the table could have cut through steel. It was clear that no one had forgotten the past, and the air was thick with unspoken resentment. I noticed the way Larry looked at my mother, his expression bitter. After she deliberately skipped his plate while serving everyone else at the table, he had to dish his own food. And instead of addressing the unfairness and correcting my mother, I whispered to him to stop looking at her like that. His face showed pure disbelief. But that wasn't even the most dramatic moment of the day. That came when my sister tried to stand up and for some reason lost her balance, falling backward. Larry reached up to catch her, but it was too late. She hit the ground hard and burst into tears. Instantly, several family members rushed to her side, including Larry, who knelt beside her, checking to see if she was bleeding or had broken anything. Thankfully, she was neither bleeding nor seriously hurt. He gently asked if she could see him, then held up 2 fingers, asking how many he was holding up. Before she could answer, I yanked him away by his shirt. Furious, I accused him of letting her fall on purpose. He looked at me in shock and confusion, asking what I meant. As he stood up, leaving my sister in the care of others, I let out a bitter laugh and told him not to play dumb. I accused him of holding a grudge against my sister for what she had done to our house and suggested that this was his twisted way of taking revenge. Larry shook his head, completely exasperated. He reminded me that my uncle had been on the other side and also hadn't caught her. So why was I blaming only him? He sighed and said he could see now that I had joined my mother in sabotaging him at every opportunity. My mother, instead of diffusing the situation, backed me up, insisting that he could have caught my sister, but didn't. Larry, utterly disappointed, shook his head and walked out of the house. I should have left it alone then and there. I should have waited until we were home if I had an issue with his actions. But I didn't. When we finally got home, Larry was waiting for me like a lion, ready to pounce. The first thing he asked was, "What do you think you were doing back there?" Exhausted, I brushed him off, saying I was too tired for an unreasonable argument. His eyes widened in disbelief. "What is that supposed to mean?" he demanded. I accused him of being a manipulative coward, of pretending to be innocent while secretly plotting. The argument escalated, both of us yelling over each other, neither backing down. When he realized we were going in circles, he just walked out. For 2 whole days, we didn't speak, a first in our relationship. The silence felt foreign and unbearable. Then our friend Brittany came over. Immediately, she sensed the tension in the air. She tried to convince us to go to a friend's party, saying we needed a change of scenery. Neither of us was interested, but Brittany was relentless. I had made up my mind. I wasn't going. I wasn't in the mood. But then I heard Larry ask, "Who's going to be there?" I was stunned. He was actually considering it. Brittany, now sensing an opportunity, rattled off the names of his closest friends. I saw the moment he gave in, nodding and saying, "All right." Brittany turned to me, but I remained firm. I wasn't going. While Larry got ready, she kept pestering me, but I refused to budge. Then, before I could even process it, Larry and Brittany left together. At first, I stayed home, but my mind wouldn't let me rest. I kept picturing them together, laughing, drinking, enjoying themselves. Then, my thoughts took a dark turn. I remembered how Brittany used to have a massive crush on Larry. She claimed she had moved on, but what if she hadn't? The idea of them alone at a party drove me insane. I sprang from my bed, threw on an outfit, and rushed out. When I got outside, I realized Larry had left the car behind, meaning he had gone in Brittany's car. That only fueled my paranoia. I sped to the party, and when I arrived, my worst fears played out before me. There was Larry drinking, laughing harder than he had in weeks, and Brittany was right there beside him. Fury surged through me. I stormed over and called his name, my voice sharp and commanding like a mother scolding her child. He looked at me confused, waiting for me to speak. I was shaking with emotions I couldn't even name: rage, jealousy, humiliation. I demanded that he get up and follow me home. He refused. That only enraged me further. I threatened him in front of his friends, telling him that if he didn't come home right now, he'd be packing his bags and leaving for good. He just laughed, a dark, unsettling laugh that sent a chill down my spine. Then he looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I've tolerated you for the last time." That was the moment everything changed. After the party, Larry told me to get out of his sight, saying it was over. I laughed, thinking he was joking. But when I got home, I packed his bags anyway, expecting him to plead to fight for us. Instead, when he returned, he took his bags and left without a second thought. I screamed after him that if he walked out, he should never come back. He turned to me and said, "Why would I come back to hell?" I was stunned. Days passed. I waited for him to call, to show up at my door, but he didn't. A week turned into 2. Nothing. Desperate, I found out where he was staying and went to see him. I barely got a word out before he practically chased me away, his eyes blazing with anger. He told me he never wanted to see me again. This was the same man who once couldn't imagine life without me. Now he won't even speak to me. Our mutual friends refuse to intervene because they know how furious he is. Even my own family members have given up, and now there is no hope. I am drowning in regret.